Well, I was already awake watching TV in my living room and heard a car crash. So I looked out the window and saw that there was a pretty bad crash. It was one guy that had crashed into a couple of parked cars, so it looked like a multi-car crash, like rammed one car into the back of another car. So this was just right across the street from me. And it was a small red car with a hatchback, and I could see that the airbag had deployed, and there was really loud music coming from the car. He had like the trunk was open, and the driver's door was open by the time I started paying attention, and so I was the one. I was one of the people who went out and that Officer Montenegro referred to, that went out and tried to offer him help, and he told me basically, go F yourself. And like as he walked past me, he spit towards me and spit on my shirt, and so I was like, all right, I assume this guy is in bad shape, drunk or something. So I just went back in and called the police and told them to come out, and I didn't think he was armed or anything. And they came out, and I saw the officer approach, and at first the guy seemed to be explaining, the crash, and I don't know if I looked down or I looked up for a second, and then when I looked back, there was a scuffle, and they were fighting, like arm fighting, and it almost looked like a boxing fight. And then the suspect was winning the fight because the officer ended up on his back, and I was thinking, should I go out and help and try to push the guy off or something? And that's when I saw that he had some type of weapon that I thought was a knife, and so I decided obviously just to stay put. And then, but I was still very concerned for the officer. And then I heard a shot go off, and I didn't know. From me, there was like a U-Haul van out front that was actually blocking my view of the second officer, so I couldn't see who was shooting. I didn't know if it was the officer that was already down, or if it was the second officer. And so, yeah, I heard like one shot, and then like the action kind of stopped, and then I heard a couple more shots, and the officer who was on bottom had separated himself from the guy. Then I think I heard one more shot, and the guy kind of stopped and was basically down, and so there was several seconds pause, and then the guy got up, like started to get back up and push himself up again, and there were two more shots after that. And so it's definitely debatable whether or not those last two shots were excessive, in my opinion.
But the fact that officers have to even deal with this situation, tell me about that. I mean, how scary is that, knowing that you're watching this and knowing what officers have to go through in a situation?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I mean, it's, it requires a lot of courage to have that job, obviously, and I'm thankful every time whenever they come out, when I call for help, and definitely happy that we have someone to protect us from the bad guys. And not that I hate that I said bad guys, because people aren't bad. They just, sometimes we do things that other people think are bad. But I think it's a really it's a job that requires a lot of courage, absolutely. But part of that courage is taking risk. And in my opinion, once a guy's already down, he's not posing as much of a risk. And so it does require courage to not keep shooting at that point. But that's what the job calls for. So.
The suspect on the floor, after those first initial shots were fired, and you said he looked like he was starting to get back up, or pushing himself up. Did you notice that he had a weapon at all at that time, or had it been knocked out, or did he
It
look
looked like the weapon. It all happened really fast, and I can't say for certain, but it did look to me like the weapon was kind of underneath him, and it looked like he was sort of getting up and reaching for it, possibly. Yeah,
It seemed like you're still in shock.
a little bit. And public speaking is not the easiest either.
How long have you lived in the neighborhood?
I've lived here about 10 years.
Other residents were saying that this is normally a very quiet and mellow neighborhood. Everyone knows everyone. Do you think it's possible that this young fella knew someone in the neighborhood?
Sure, I think it's possible. My first thought was that it probably was someone down the street, because most of the people that drive through the street are residents. So yeah, that was probably my main reason for not hesitating to go out and offer the guy help, was because I was thinking it was probably local, or if not, you hit someone's car and when it's in the street, and then in the middle of the morning and they're asleep, so I was just going to offer to wake the neighbors up or whatever like that. And yeah, I just can't believe that what we see on TV all around the country actually happened right in front of my house. I mean, it's definitely normally a very quiet neighborhood as far as crime goes. We have loud parties. That's about it.